Carl Fernandez is here. Maya Hernandez. Go to the left. Is here. Dora Namdar is here. Shana Partush. Rivka Shira Prinsloo. Rachel Prinsloo is here. Sofa Guliyafa.
Here.
Sarah Besnes.
Here.
Zvara Kapilovich. Sharon El Sasson. Here. Bracha Simcha Ig. Ignashkina, because there's no G's after. Ignashkina. Trying to remember. Chava Krimko. Welcome to the class. Question before we start. Generally, in other classes, do you always switch around seats like this, or do you have? Is there any classes do you have set seats, or all the classes everyone sits down randomly? Because that's
you
what.
have an unofficial assigned seat. You pick the seat that you're comfortable with, and you just stay there the whole year. But if you switch a seat, it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, see, my question is, how would you feel about everyone keeping the same seat and not moving around? Makes it easy for me to remember the names. Is that an issue, or it's not comfortable? You want to be able to move around. Not that you can't move if you want to switch. I'm just saying if randomly, it seems that some of you are randomly switching seats. That's what it seems like. Some of you are on the same seat and some are moving around. Is that correct?
Most of us are on the same.
Most on the same seat. Okay, so put it this way: if possible, try to keep the same seat. Okay, if you need to move. We're not tying you up. I'm just saying, if there's no difference, if you don't have any specific reason, try to keep the same seat. So make it easier for me when it comes to names. Okay. So in the last class, we started doing the Malva test Malachas, we started Bishul, Malachas of Bishul. So we're going to go over what we did in the last class. Okay, so we have this is the Malacha of Bishul. Everyone can read this. Bishul means cooking. You know what cooking Shabbos, including the Malacha of cooking, is not only cooking, but obviously frying, baking, anything that you're using fire to change the texture of the food. And for that matter, who remembers the Malacha of Bishul? Could it apply also to non-food? Could the Malacha of Bishul apply to non-food, meaning that you will transgress the Malacha of Bishul even if it's not food? Anyone remembers this?
No.
Bishul is only for food? Well,
What's
the definition, okay, it's not, the word Bishul, cooking, applies to food, obviously. So you can say cooking doesn't make any sense to cook anything else. We're talking about the transgression of Bishul. If you cook on Shabbos, you transgress. That transgression of Bishul, does that also apply to non-food items? Could that apply that you will transgress the Malacha of Bishul also with non-food items? Or is it exclusively for food items? That's my question.
It's for food items.
Well, you also can't put a wax
Well, usually when you say cooking, that's food. You don't cook the table. But I'm talking about the malacha, the transgression of Bishul. Could that apply also to non-food items? Anyone remembers from last class?
when you're talking about changing the shape of an item by putting it on heat, because you can't put a hard piece of wax on a candle.
That's what I wanted to hear. If someone takes a piece of wax and puts it over the fire at Shabbos, so most people think about it, it's muktzah. I mean, generally with the kids, they're about to put on a light, and other kids are screaming at them, muktzah, everything is muktzah. Muktzah is a result of malachas. It begins with a malacha. When you put wax, you can't put wax over a candle to allow it to melt, not because it's muktzah, I mean it's muktzah too, but I'm saying that the prohibition by the Torah is that you're using fire to alter, to change the texture of the item or to make earthenware using fire to change the texture is included in the Halacha of Bishul. Just like you know how to cook, you know how to do anything that makes the cooking faster, quicker. So, for example, what's an example that you're not actually cooking, because it's going to cook anyways, but you're doing something that now it's going to cook a little quicker. What's an example for that? Stirring. What else? What else we discussed in the last class? What else? An example that food is cooking, I was saying, we're talking about the food is not completely cooked, obviously. Okay? But covering it, if it's not completely cooked, then you cover it, it's going to cook faster. If you move it closer to the fire, that's why if the food is not completely cooked Shabbos, if I'm mistaken, take off the lid, you can't put back the lid because the lid is going to make it cook. Yeah, we spoke about stirring. Could you stir a pot of food when it's off the fire? So we have yes, we have a no. And they're both right because of machlekes. It's an argument.
You said sources vary last week.
Huh?
You said sources vary. Some say you shouldn't do it because then it looks like that and it's still hot when I need to get off the flame.
We discussed the reason why you can't do it while it's on the fire, because it's on the when it's stirring on the fire, it's usually when something is still on the fire, it has not been completely cooked, right? So that's why you cannot stir while it's on the fire. When it's off the fire, we gave the two opinions. You following me? Two opinions. I don't remember giving, and I don't remember giving a reason. I don't remember a reason. I'm not even sure what the reason of the argument is. You following me? Yeah. So off the fire, there's a strict opinion that says you cannot stir off the fire, and the reason was probably would be because that opinion is concerned that maybe it's not completely cooked, even though it is completely cooked. But there's that concern. Now, what's the halacha? So we gave two opinions. We said it's a machlekes. What's the halacha? Could I take a pot of food while it's off the fire and stir the pot and it's completely cooked? So I'll ask you, what's the halacha? I took a pot off the fire. Am I allowed to stir the pot? So we heard two opinions. But what's the halacha? Are you allowed or you're not allowed?
You are allowed.
That's correct. You are allowed to stir a pot of food when it's off the fire if it's completely cooked.
Yeah.
Correct. However, there is a chumrah that means there is a stringency that the Alter Rebbe says one should be strict. It's a good thing to be strict and not to stir a pot of food while it's off the fire, even though it's off the fire.
What is sure?
Stir. You stick. You're mixing. So you should be strict and not disturb the fire. Okay, question. I have a pot of food on the fire. I open up the lid, it's completely cooked, and I want to take chont out of the pot. I'm not going to stir. I want to scoop some chont out of the pot. Pot is on the fire. It's completely cooked. Am I allowed to do that? No. Anyone knows what the reason is? Why can't I take chont out of the pot that's completely cooked? What is the problem?
You're like still mixing it all.
I'm not stirring it. I'm just taking food out of the pot.
Because by like taking it out, you're moving it around.
Okay, when you're taking out some food, even though you're not stirring, it's considered there's actually two ways how to explain it. So, some explain because what you're saying it's like a miniature type of stirring. You're stirring a little bit. There's another explanation because if we allow you to take with a spoon, you might come to stir. I think the main explanation is the second one. And what I've seen so far, it seems that's the concern. That if we allow you to take with a spoon, you'll come to stir. It's sort of a very fine line. Not so fine, but they're pretty close to each other. It's like it's bordering. Stirring and taking out with a spoon border on each other. So if you allow to take with a spoon, you might come to stir. That's the reason why you don't take out with a spoon while it's on the fire. Could you take out with a spoon when it's off the fire? Yes, because that's already, the Chacham didn't want to be so strict. Just the fact that you're not stirring while it's off the fire, it's already a stringency. You're already being strict. Now take the spoon, we leave you alone. You don't need to. Or you're gonna be strict. Okay, so now we go to Kli Nishin. Kli Nishin. Anyone knows what Kli Nishin is? This doesn't. Kli Nishin. Kli Rishon. What everyone knows what Kli Rishon is? First vessel. So what does that mean? Anyone knows what it means?
The original vessel
that it was cooked in, right? So very simple. Halacha, a Kli Rishon, the original, the pot of cholent that it was cooked in, the pot of soup. Even when you take it off the fire, it has the ability to cook, and you can't put anything inside. You want to put salt, you want to put something that's not cooked. There's no fire. I'm not cooking with fire. I'm allowed, is that okay? Because I'm not using fire? No, because it was heated up by fire, so I cannot do that. I can't put anything that's not cooked into a Kli Rishon. So the halach is Kli Rishon Mevash. So Kli Rishon Mevash. So you should write down these words. These are classical words in halacha, that a Kli Rishon Mevash has the ability to cook. Now, only has the ability to cook while it's Yad Siledis. Only while it's what's called Yad Siledis. Siledis means your hand recoils.
like hot water, right?
What do you mean, like hot water?
Like when you touch hot water.
Right, correct. Anything that's hot, naturally, your hand recoils. So it's only if it's so hot that it's Yad Siledis, that if your hand touches it, you move back your hand. Now, in degrees, there's different opinions. Anywhere from 108 Fahrenheit and higher may be Yad Siledis. We don't have an exact temperature. Even the Poskim, the Rabbanim, and Moshe Feinstein, they don't give an exact. They say some say from 110, some say from 108. There's already a possibility that it's Yad Siledis. So as long as the Kli Rishon is Yad Siledis, you can't put anything inside that was not cooked yet. You put salt, pepper, things that weren't cooked, even though salt was cooked, but you're gonna see later, you'll understand later why. Once it falls below the temperature of Yad Siledis, then it doesn't have the ability to cook. So obviously you can put anything inside. However, the Alter Rebbe says, it is good not to. The Alter Rebbe says even less than Yad Siledis. So Alter Rebbe says even less than Hebrew and English together. Less than Yad Siledis. You know what the Alter Rebbe says? The Alter Rebbe says it is good toiv l'minoya. It is good l'minoya to refrain. So Alter Rebbe says it is good. L'minoya means to refrain, and it's a good thing to refrain, even if it's not Yad Siledis. Don't put anything inside. Now, generally speaking, when something is not Yad Siledis, there's no issue. It doesn't have the ability to cook. Now, Alter Rebbe is being strict because it's a Kli Rishon. Specifically by Kli Rishon, we being Alter Rebbe says it's good not to put anything inside. Anything that wasn't cooked. Okay, anything that wasn't cooked yet. Because usually a Kli Rishon is Yad Siledis. Usually, it's on the fire. You take it off. Usually, it's Yad Siledis. And people could get confused, or that's actually more precisely the reason. People could get confused. People will see you putting pepper, salt in a Kli Rishon because it's not Yad Siledis. They're going to say, "Oh, you're allowed to put salt into Kli Rishon." Wow, I'm allowed to put salt in the Kli Rishon. And they're gonna come to put it even when it is Yatsi Ledis. So the Alter Rebbe says it is good to be strict and not to put, even if it's less than Yatsi Ledis, Toiv Lemenai, it is good to refrain, it is good to not put anything that's not cooked into Kli Nishay, even though it's not Yatsi Ledis. So that's a stringency, but that's only for Kli Nishay. This does not apply to a Kli Sheni. Okay, I'm going to erase this. Are you still writing this, or can I? Yeah. Now we go to Kli Sheni. Oh, actually, we're not done with Kli Nishay. That's what we call Irei Mikli Nishay. Write down this term. I'd like you to learn these terms, so I guess I could use them and you know what it means. So I don't have to every time translate again and explain. Irei Mikli Nishay. Yeah. Iroi means pouring. Mikeli Nishay from the first vessel. Okay. Iroi, pouring. It's easy to write in English. I don't know exactly if all you are able to write Hebrew. So if you're pouring from a Keli Rishon. Okay. What about pouring from a Keli Rishon? What about it? Well, just like you can't put inside a Kli Nishay, if I pour from the hot pot of soup onto salt, onto pepper, something that's not cooked, it's also prohibited. Even Kli Nishay, mivashel, it has the ability to cook. So just like I can't put something that's not cooked inside the pot, a soup, I can't pour from the pot of soup onto that item that's not cooked, like salt, pepper, or whatever, anything that's not cooked. Now we have a Kli Sheni. Okay, we'll leave this on, Kli Sheni. Should have started higher up. Now it's done. Kli Sheni. Everyone knows what Kli Sheni is, right? You take the pot of soup, you make coffee, you pour for one. Yeah, everyone's familiar with Kli Sheni? You know about this, okay. What about a Kli Sheni? Does a Kli Sheni have the ability to cook? So, Kli Sheni einay mevashal. See what I wrote it? I wrote a Kli Sheni einay mevashal. Kli Sheni does not have the ability to cook. It doesn't have the ability to cook, which means technically, halachically, a Kli Sheni does not have the ability to cook. It means if I take the pot of soup and I pour into another keli, I could put in salt, I could put in pepper. It would seem that way, at least. In other words, strictly according to the letter of the law, Kli Sheni does not have the ability to cook. So it would seem that I'm allowed to put anything inside a Kli Sheni. However, space here. Is it going to confuse you if I go to the top of the word? You remember that you have to go upside down. Okay, so we go to the top now. There is something called Kli Sheni, but it's Yad Nichris. A Kli Sheni, but Yad, the hand, Nichris. Nichris means will get burnt. We just had it this week's Passion. Monday or Tuesday's Chitas. Some of you might be doing Chitas, Chumash. Kivio Tachas Kvio. Someone gets a burn, you cause someone to be burnt, you have to pay for the damages of the burn, whether it's the pain or the actual damages. Does that ring the bell at all? No. Yeah. Okay. So nichris comes the word kriya, burn. Look in the one I could show you later in the pasuk. So it might click better when you see it in a pasuk, and then you see it. Oh, so you make a connection between that. Okay, yad nichris, your hand will be burned. Burn doesn't mean necessarily a third-degree burn. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It means that you get a good burn. Now, you know, sometimes you take coffee, and people sometimes like to have very hot water. It's going to be a good coffee. Then sometimes it's not, the percolator is not so hot. It's hot, but it's not like. So even within Yatsi Ledis, we spoke before Yatsi Ledis, you can have 2 cups that both Yatsi Ledis, But one is really, really piping hot, and the other one is hot, but it's not piping hot. People usually say piping hot, they usually refer to yad nichris, you had to get burnt. It's like really hot. Now, even though keli sheni does not have the ability to cook, but if it's a keli sheni, it's yad nichris, you had to get burnt, then it does have the ability to cook because it's yad nichris. Now, another important point, and that is going back. Now we're going back to keli sheni and mavashel. So when I'm on the bottom of the boards, when I talk about keli sheni and mavashel, I'm obviously referring to a keli sheni that is yad nichris or yad tziledus. Yad tziledus. Yad nichris is the harder times. Your hand get burned. Yad tziledus is your hand recoils. It's also hot, but it's not like you burn yourself. When we say kli sheni does not have the ability to cook, we're discussing yad tziledus, not yad nichris where your hand can get burnt. You get it? You follow what I'm saying? Yeah? It's not so hot. Yad nichris is really hot. You could burn yourself. So kli sheni mavashel is talking about yad tziledus. Now, it would seem that in the kli sheni that's only yad tziledus, you're allowed to put anything inside. That's what it would seem this way. However, even in kli sheni, yad tziledus, Chacham said, no, you can't put anything you want into the kli sheni yad tziledus. Why? Chacham said there are certain foods that are very delicate foods that they cook very quickly. Raw foods that are very delicate, they cook very quickly. We don't know exactly what they are. Chacham say, we're not sure. Delicate foods, say our sages tell us, will cook in a kli sheni because they cook very quickly. What are those delicate foods? Chacham say, we're not sure what they are. So therefore, you should be careful. Don't put anything in the kli sheni, even though it's only a kli sheni and it doesn't have the ability to cook, but we don't want you to put anything into kli sheni, yad tziledus, because it might cook inside the kli sheni. Now, it's not the end of the sentence. They said we don't want you to put anything inside besides those things that we tell you clearly you're allowed to put in. So there's certain things Chacham clearly said you could put in the kli sheni. Those are spices. Again, so we have to remember, we're discussing kli sheni, yad tziledus, not yad nichris. Kli sheni, yad tziledus. So certain things Chacham said you could put in spices. They allowed garlic, onions. Okay, not so practical, but these are things they allowed. And spices, they allowed you to put all liquids. That is just in case some of you have learned it in other places. The Alter Rebbe differs with other opinions in regards to liquids. The Alter Rebbe says you can put in all liquids. Other opinions say just water. But the Alter Rebbe says you can put all liquids into a kli sheni yad tziledus, which means if you have a kli sheni and it's yad tziledus, not yad nichris, you could put milk inside because all liquids could be put into a kli sheni if it's only yad tziledus and it's not yad nichris. Any questions so far?
Do we have a book that we can see it? Like,
You can't see it from here?
no. If we want to.
Maybe like a stencil, a paper?
Yeah.
You know what? I could, I'll try to put out something. I do have things I try in other places, and I did put some. I don't know if I give a handout. You mean a handout, right?
Like a book. We do it like from a book.
We could put together a handout with all the things, cliche, then we could do that. Now, so what are we saying so far? we're saying that a kli sheni, don't put anything inside. Now, the most challenging part over here is, for sure for beginners, how do I know if it's yad tzeledis? How do I know if it's yad lichvis? Yeah, it's complicated, and there's no way for me to give you an exact description on paper. But again, yad lichvis means that you could burn yourself. Do you know the difference? So sure if I tell you this, you get what I'm saying. You have a hot drink, yeah. Sometimes you put it in your hand, and it's not comfortable. You pull it out, right? It's too hot. And then sometimes you put it, and it's like you really burn yourself, right? So that's what it means. But is that to give you an exact temperature is hard to say. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Kli sheni. Kli sheni. So what are we saying now? Don't put anything in a kli sheni because we don't know if it has the ability to cook, what it's going to cook or not. So if you take the kli sheni and you pour it into a kli shlishi, now you're okay. So once it's in a kli shlishi, then according to many opinions, even that there's different opinions. According to many opinions, now you're good. You can put anything aside. Okay. Now we're going to get into another example, and that is question. Sitting Friday night, having hot chicken soup, and you have challah, and you want to stick a piece of challah into the hot chicken soup. Is that permitted?
Only if it's not a cliche.
If it's a cliche, you can. It has to be a cliche. What's the problem? Okay, is everyone following you? Yeah. Everyone hears what's happening. What's the issue? What is the problem? As far as I know, challah is already baked. I'm not cooking something that's raw. The challah is baked. Why? What is the problem? Is everyone following what's happening?
Yeah, if the challah is already baked.
The challah is baked already.
Yeah.
So can I put it inside my soup?
No?
So, yeah,
Maybe that's the flour that aren't.
kind of like on Pesach.
Okay, what you said before was actually pretty much on target. You said, well, if it's a cliche, it's an issue. I'm just asking because I want you to understand what's the issue. The challah is baked already. Why should it be a problem putting challah into hot soup? The challah is baked. Am I cooking the challah?
No.
I'm not. It's baked already.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you see what the issue is, now I'm going to explain to you. There is a machloikas. There's an argument, right? As usual.
Really? We can't with all
Right.
the machlokes. I don't understand nothing.
That's how the Jews live. Yeah. Okay.
I'm
So-
confused.
So one opinion says, I'm going to tell you the halacha. One opinion says, it's baked already. Like everyone is saying it. What is the other? Why does who could think, why does one opinion say it's still prohibited? It's baked, but he's still not allowed. What could be a reason? Anyone?
Because not from the cooking, from something else.
It was never boiled. It was only baked and it wasn't boiled. Every process in cooking is different, right? Does the texture come up? Is there a different texture when you boil, as opposed to when you bake, as opposed to when you fry, roast, right? Does the taste come out different?
It's like soggy.
Is everyone following?
The challah would become like soggy.
So what? What are you trying to say? You're
So
saying
you wouldn't intentionally ever cook challah that way.
you are okay. That doesn't matter. But the point is, you're putting it. But why you're putting it into the hot water? You're putting it into the hot soup. The fact is, you're putting it in hot soup. So you don't want it to be soggy, but you.
They would get soggy from any liquid, so. I don't think the
So what
heat
is going
would
to
make the
get?
difference.
So what is going to get soggy?
So I don't think the heat makes the difference in the texture of the challah, because the challah already went through the heat process of it. The only thing that would be changing the texture would be the liquid.
Correct.
So
Okay.
then it's not really cooking, because it's just the liquid, it's not the heat that's causing the change.
It's the heat too. The heat also has an effect. The heat has some effect. You're saying it's just the liquid, not the heat.
It's because of.
But like we said, there is two opinions, but one opinion is saying that the heat does something. Heat has an effect. You want to say it doesn't have such a great effect, but it does have some effect. And that's why one opinion says this is prohibited in Shabbos because though it was baked, but it never went, now it's going through a process of boiling. So we have machlekes, and the Alter Rebbe says we want to be strict. So therefore, let's start with clean rishon. Everyone following this? So a clean rishon, you're not allowed, the Alter Rebbe says, don't put any challah into a clean rishon, because one opinion says it's going to cook. Don't put it into a clean rishon. What about a kli sheni? I want to put challah into kli sheni. Well, we already said certain things cook in a kli sheni. We don't know what they are. Don't put anything in. So don't put challah into kli sheni. Right? Get it? You already said that you have to be careful not to put anything in the kli sheni because it might cook. So challah included. Challah is something that, according to one opinion, you're not allowed to put in a kli sheni. So you also should be strict not to put in a kli sheni because challah might be from those delicate foods that could cook in a kli sheni. Like you said, you were correct. Don't put challah in the kli sheni. It should be in a kli shlishi. There is a leniency when it comes to challah, and then we have to explain another thing, and that is, this is going to come up later, we'll explain it now. Actually, that's going to come up later. I was going to say about a ladle, because when you're eating soup from your bowl, you already took a little ladle, so it's a little different. So there's a leniency for that, but later on we'll get to explain what's the logic behind that. Just want to go in order. I have leftover chicken soup. I'm sitting by the table, I'm basically eating my chicken soup, and have some leftovers, and there's liquid left over in the bowl, and it's already room temperature. And I want to have more soup, let's say. So comes, takes my bowl, and is going to put more soup into the bowl. Let's not talk about the liquid now. Let's focus on, you're going to give me I want another matzah bowl, okay? So I have some liquid in my bowl. The liquid is room temperature. So the water cooled off already, okay, room temperature. Now, I'm going to get a matzah bowl that's very hot, because the pot is still hot. You're going to put a matzah bowl into my soup that's room temperature. And the matzah bowl that's hot is not going to change the temperature of the liquid in my bowl. Now, we actually have to explain something else first. And that is, there's something else that we did not explain yet that comes before this. Am I allowed to recook liquid? There's something called ein bishul acha bishul. Okay, I'm gonna.
No, we can't.
Okay, look at the top of the board. Everyone look at the top of the board. Ein. Ein bishul acha bishul. There's no cooking after cooking. Anyone knows what it means? There's no cooking after cooking. Anyone here knows? There's no cooking after cooking. For the woman in the kitchen, it means one thing. Cooking is over. No one should come to the kitchen because that's it. I'm done. I'm cleaned up, ready. But halacha, it means something else. No cooking. Huh?
Reheating?
Hmm?
Reheating?
Okay, there's no really. So what does it mean? There's no cooking after cooking. What does that
You already
mean?
cooked it and then you put it back on the fire?
So then there's no cooking. So we're saying it's okay.
No,
You're saying so you're allowed to do that, right?
yeah. We're not allowed to cook twice.
You're
I'm
allowed,
saying,
you're not
like,
allowed.
something
We're
that's-
not allowed.
Hmm? You can't, you're not allowed.
No, like.
You can't physically cook it, correct. Once something is cooked already, you can't cook it again. It's cooked already. I have potatoes, I cooked it. It's cold, I'm gonna cook it again. You're not cooking it again, it's cooked already. You could warm it up. So that's what it means. There's no cooking after cooking. That's why something that's cooked already and you recook it on Shabbos, you're not recooking it. You don't transgress for cooking because it's already cooked. Got it?
Yeah.
Now that's by dried items. That's by a piece of potato cooked, a dry piece of chicken, anything that's cooked and dry. But something that's wet, liquid, water. I cook up water before Shabbos. And now I'm drinking the water, and now the water became room temperature. So now, if I take this water, and let's say I put it on the fire and it's going to cook again, okay? Let's say, is that called cooking?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Now I'm cooking the water again?
Yeah,
It's cooked already. It was cooked, but it became cold. The chicken also became cold.
Yeah,
But it's different. The structure of the chicken changed. The structure of the water didn't.
Okay, you're close to it. When you're cooking chicken, everything is
With
100%.
liquids, it's more so enhancing the flavor of the item whenever you cook a liquid.
But
That's
it's just
why-
plain
Water, plain water. The
But
water
it's
is
still-
cooked, now it's room temperature. It was already cooked.
Still part of it.
So it's actually a machlokes. There are different opinions. Some say you're not, some say, you're following, you're discussing halacha. Some say that the halacha of ein bishan is also by water. That you ought to that's it's a machlokes, yeah. Why? Because it's already cooked. The cooking does something to the water. There is something that changes in the water with the cooking, whatever it does. On the other hand, the other opinion says part of the accomplishment of the cooking over here is to make the water hot. Now it's not hot anymore, so whatever the heat was supposed to accomplish with this water is gone, right? I mean, that's what you didn't say those words, but I'm sure you're thinking, that's what you have in your mind. That's why there's a major difference between a piece of chicken and water that's cold. So it's a machlokes. What does the Halacha Rabbi say? The Halacha Rabbi says that one should be strict. The Halacha Rabbi says you're not allowed to recook water. Now, there's other halachas, even when you're allowed to cook, where you could put on the blech. So we're not discussing the blech, we're discussing cooking now. The Halacha Rabbi says one should be strict. One should be strict not to recook water that was, even though it was cooked already, but if it goes down to room temperature, you are not to recook it. You're going to transgress on bishul. However, the Halacha Rabbi says, the Halacha Rabbi does say that if the Halacha Rabbi somewhere, in other words, because there's two opinions, the Halacha Rabbi sort of comes in the middle and draws a line in the middle. The Halacha Rabbi says if it's still warm, has warmth, not to be confused with Yatsi Ledis. Yatsi Ledis is hot. Below Yatsi Ledis, you have a temperature that's called, it's not a temperature that's called, I'm saying, Halacha Rabbi discusses water that's still warm. You ever drink a tea or coffee, and after a while, it's not hot anymore, but it's still warm. And then after a while, later, and now it's room temperature. You follow what I'm saying? Warm, not hot, but not room temperature. So you have to have a feeling for it. I can't give you no other way more I could say or give you an exact temperature. Maybe there is a temperature. I never measured it myself, but I can tell exactly. Anyways, you're not going to go on the thermometer. You get a feel for it. You follow what I'm saying? So warm water, the Halacha Rabbi says you're allowed to recook on Shabbos. If it was already completely cooked. If it was already completely cooked, the Halacha Rabbi says, because it's already cooked and it's still warm, and there are opinions that say you can always recook it anyways, even if it's cold. So the Rebbe says if it's warm, you're allowed to recook it. That's because it's already cooked. Water that was never cooked completely, you can't. You can't take warm water. Oh, it's already warm. I could cook it more. No, It was never completely cooked. Because it's completely cooked already, and it went down, and now it's warm, I'm allowed to recook it. But if it goes down to becoming cold, that's cold is a description, halacha, cold, but what it actually means is even room temperature. So if you learn halacha, tzayin and cold, doesn't mean cold, room temperature, now you're not allowed to recook it. So let me just finish up because I started talking about the soup, so I want to know what's happening. I finished my soup. I didn't finish, I still have some soup left, but now the soup is room temperature. Am I allowed to recook it? No. But what's gonna happen now, I'm just going to get a hot matzo ball that's gonna be put into the soup, into the leftover liquid, and it's not gonna change the temperature of the liquid. The temperature of the liquid is staying the same. Am I allowed to do that? Yes or no?
No.
Who said,
Yes.
why no?
Because it will change the liquid.
It's not going to change.
Okay.
The liquid is gonna change a little bit, but the liquid is not gonna become warm.
Why? If it's very hot, it's changing, no?
If you have liquid this amount and hot,
Okay.
the liquid becomes hot. No.
No, but it will, the temperature will maybe, this is a chmara, maybe it will.
Okay. Well, Arya, what did you say?
Yes,
said
answer?
You said you're allowed. You have any other
The only thing that would
perspective?
change is the temperature of the matzo ball.
Well, the liquid is going to stay
The liquid will
room
stay the
temperature. Like anyone, any other ways? Any other perspectives here? Okay, so the answer actually is you're not allowed to do it. Why?
I'm shocked.
Listen carefully. By contact, when this hot matzo ball or ever hot piece, talking about solid, not liquid, comes to contact with liquid, on the initial contact, it cooks the surface of the liquid. Now, wait. Now you don't know about it. We're talking about within split seconds, meaning on initial contact, it's going to cook the surface of the liquid, but because it goes so fast, so then it mixes. So the end result is still soup that's room temperature. But on initial contact, when hot touches the liquid, when it hits the surface, right at the beginning, it's cooking that liquid. But then it goes right inside the liquid, and there's enough liquid to cool it off. So the end result is it's room temperature. But the initial, because it's solid, it's specifically, I'm not discussing hot liquid into cold liquid. That's another discussion. We're discussing is specifically hot solid into cold liquid. On the initial touch, or you can say that as soon as it smacks the surface of the water, it cooks the top liquid. Yeah.
So if you said this doesn't apply to hot liquid into cold liquid.
Right, hot into cold is a different discussion.
So let's
Now
move
we're
on to the
gonna-
matzo ball. Can you take, but then you still have a little bit of cold liquid. Can you first pour in a little bit more of the hot liquid and then put in the matzo ball?
Okay, so the hot and the cold we've discussed, we're running late. We'll have to wait.
Okay.
So if you want to pour hot into cold, if you're pouring directly from the Kli Rishon, into cold, answer is no.
So it has to be.
If you're pouring from a Kli Sheni into cold, then you're allowed.
Okay, so it has to be the cold is in the cliche.
No, if you want to pour from hot soup into cold soup, correct?
Yeah.
So we're saying if you're pouring from the pot of soup itself, the Kli Rishon, then you cannot pour into the cold soup.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if you pour from the cliche, then you're pouring into a cliche kind of situation, no?
The pot is a Kli Rishon.
No, I know, I'm saying.
So you pour the soup into another pot, you say?
Yeah,
Pour
no,
the soup.
and then you're pouring it, let's say you have the cold soup,
Yeah,
So the cold, whatever bowl the cold soup is, it would end up being the kli shishi, because you're pouring from kli sheni into.
Where's the cliche? Is everyone following this?
Because
Where's
you
the
said,
kli
you said
sheni?
you can't pour the hot water from a kli rishon, so then you're pouring it into kli sheni, and from the kli sheni you can pour it into kli shishi.
Okay, so that's, okay, I didn't get that right away. What you're saying is, you take the hot pot of soup, pouring it into empty bowl,
Then
right?
pouring from
and
that
then
into
from
the
the
bowl.
bowl into, the yeah,
So I'm
fine.
saying is the bowl that with the cold soup is kind of like a cliche.
Cliche,
Sushi, yeah.
yeah, correct. It becomes the cliche because it's a cliche before that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
fine, yeah.
So either way, you would then.
But you have to pour from the hot bowl of soup, hot
Yeah.
into another empty pot,
Cliche.
and then from that, you pour it in.
That's like everything else. It's like it's the same. Sorry.
You got it now?
Yeah. I got it. I just